Hello and welcome to Slightly Dramatic. Today is a lovely Saturday, and I was not supposed to be recording because in my head I was like, I have burnout and depression. So, guys, the last week has been horrid. It's been horrid. I have spiraled into some sort of depression, and I've cried a minimum of 3 times per day, and that's minimum. And it genuinely felt like I was grieving. Like I was like, bitch, nobody died. Like, why are you crying like this? Like, I would sit down, I'd look at my computer and cry. I would go lie down and be like, okay, you know what? Give yourself a break. And then I'd be like, okay, 30 minutes is done from this break of you doing nothing, which is fine, by the way. I think it was absolutely right that I was doing nothing. And I was like, okay, it's time to apply for jobs now. So I got up, looked at my computer, and I cried. I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm so tired of doing this. Oh my god. Can I use my computer for Netflix, please? Because it's not like I don't watch Netflix at all, but also it just my computer was just screaming my name, and I was just like, you're screaming my name for the wrong reasons, bro. And it has been a really exhausting week. Now, in my previous video, I did mention about how I have 6 months on my visa, and I've been keeping it in, and I've been trying to be like okay with it and don't think too much about it. Just make sure you're applying for jobs, you're doing your due diligence and all of that. And then someone at work happened to ask me, hey, so how's the visa thing going? And I was like, Jesus, oh my god, the way like she opened Pandora's box, man. I was like, I have this thing of downplaying things. So I'll be like, yeah, so this is happening and that's happening, but it's fine because I'm also enjoying my life. It's not like I'm not, I'm having a good time, but I'm also but I'm also I went for a concert. I'm fine. I'm completely fine. I'm not fine, but it's not something that I'm gonna show at work. So since that happened, I could not get myself to do anything. Like the most I would do is apply for jobs, and then every time I sat to apply after finishing one application, which takes like so much time, I would end up like just tearing up. Like I would be like, okay, go to bed at a reasonable time and do Sudoku. Don't think about this shit. I'd be doing Sudoku, thinking about numbers on what box to put them into, and then there would be one tear falling out like this, and I'd be like, why? What is the reason? You were focusing on numbers. What is this tear for? So it has been an exhausting week. And then I drew it down to being burnt out and just being somehow depressed. But that was not the case. I don't think, I'm probably sure it is burnout in a way of like doing all of these things. I've also tried, like, the last time I spoke about Toastmasters, and I still would want to do it, but I also know that I'm picking up these things just so that I don't have to think and pay attention to what's actually on my mind. But then the fact that I did pay attention to what's actually on my mind, I don't feel like doing Toastmasters or any other certification. I'm like, listen, just calm down. Like, just choose 3 things to focus on. One is the job applications, the other one's the podcast, and the third thing is like making sure I'm fit, which is like working out or going running and stuff. So I was like, that's all you need to focus on. You don't, please don't go crazy and decide on one more thing which you don't require. You'll be fine. You'll be fine with our Toastmasters. Through the podcast, you can learn to speak better, and maybe you will find someone who will tell you how to speak better. I don't know. But anyways, I just didn't need another thing. So Toastmasters is not happening. I may in the next month decide that I'm interested in something else, and I'll probably announce it, and then I'll probably not do it again. So that's a personality trait that I own or have. So now in conclusion, why am I saying all of this is basically because I had to think about, okay, you are unhappy about your situation right now, and not right now, but you're unhappy about the uncertainty that you may be facing in the next few months. But also you have been here for 2.5 years, and there has to be so many things that I'm grateful for with the experiences that I've had here, and I'm so grateful, trust me. I'm somehow not like getting emotional about this, but genuinely the past 3 years have been the best 3 years of my life, and I love them so much. And I was like, okay, if these were the best years, why were they your best years? Like, what about these 3 years made you feel the most happy, that you don't want to let it go. I don't want to let this life go, dude. I love everything that I've experienced in the past 3 years, the good, the bad, the nasty, the beautiful, every single thing. So to like, so to come to have to think about, oh, I may possibly have to leave this life, and also that's one sort of acceptance, but also knowing that you'll be fine in whatever has to come next. You'll be fine, but also knowing that, but this is the life I want. Like there's this song by the Smiths called Please Please Please, and it says please please please, like just give me this one thing that I want. And I'm just like, yeah, please, please let me have this one thing that I want. But life does not work that way, apparently. Universe, manifestation, God, what is happening? So I decided to think about the positives and think about, okay, what did I get from this experience? What were some of the coolest things that happened here? And why do I love this experience so much? Like, why do I love it? And also, let's say if I move to into my next stage of life, how can I carry forward, and what exactly am I carrying forward in this next phase, right? So that I don't drop. If I go back home, I don't want to be boxed into the personality that I was when I was back home. And I know that can easily happen, because when I left from India to Kuwait, I still felt a bit boxed in Kuwait, because that's where I grew up. So I didn't know how to be who I actually am in a way. I mean, I was, but I was also not. It's a thing. I don't know how to explain it. Whoever understands will understand. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to wherever I'm going to go to, I should know the growth that I'm going with, and I should make sure that I'm continuing to grow in that way, and I have the courage to do these things that I didn't have the courage to do back home. So if I do go back home, I have the courage to continue doing them. One of the things that I'm the most grateful for, the ability to live alone. I don't think solo living is understated, but I also don't think anyone realizes the importance of living by yourself when you can, and also what it actually does for you. There are positives, and then there are negatives as well. The first time I started living alone was when I was 30, and when I say alone, I was still like house sharing. I still am house sharing. If I could own, like if I could stay in a whole 1 bedroom flat, I would happily do so. But not to brag, but I live on the more expensive side of London or UK or whatever. That's not a brag, actually. It's just expensive. Like, if there were cheaper options, I'd obviously go there. But I never thought there would be a day in my life where I would actually live by myself like this. I have always been surrounded by friends. I've always been surrounded by my family. And, there's so much beauty in that sense of community as well. I mean, it's not a community, it's your family and friends. It's really comforting to have these people around you, and you have someone to always lean on. But when you live solo, you don't necessarily have that, and you have to lean on yourself, and then it's such a learning experience as well. So again, I genuinely never thought that I would have this experience, because ideally, as per the blueprint that is given to us growing up, they are like, you gotta get married by 28. And I thought I would get married by 28, but I broke up by 28. And then I just didn't know what else to do. So I thought, okay, let me go get an education at 29. And then I got an education, and now I'm living alone, and now I'm living on borrowed time. Okay, before I spiral. When this blueprint was not truly followed through, and now at 30, I'm living by myself, I became exposed to this whole new lifestyle of solo living. And it's such a liberating experience. It's not just liberation in terms of freedom and I can do whatever I want. It's not like I used to not do whatever I wanted back home as well. I used to do whatever I wanted. No one was stopping me. They were probably having questions about my lifestyle choices, but no one was stopping me from what I wanted to do, right? But here, there's complete liberty, not just for the things that you want to do, but also mentally, emotionally. It's just such a liberating experience. So I'm gonna try to give you like a breakdown of the positives and negatives of this experience. The downside is that a lot of the time you're alone. Like, a lot of the time you are alone. And I think at this point I'm quite used to it. But it takes a while to get to a point of getting used to it. You genuinely have to be okay to like coming home and not having anyone ask about your day, or not having this sort of just anyone to lean on to. You are completely by yourself. So you have to be fine with that. And it takes a while to get fine with that. When you're back home or when you're living with someone, you know that you can come home and probably there might be food on your table, and probably there'll be someone saying, hey, did you have a bad day? Okay, cool, let's talk about it. And then you can vent out or whatever. You have these people to distract you. I mean, I wouldn't say distract, but to comfort you. But you also have people to distract you. Let's say if you're bored and you don't know with what you want to do with the spare time that you have right now, you can call a friend and be like, hey, do you want to go for this walk? And then we can just speak about how miserable our life is and distract yourself. But when you're alone and you're going through all of these experiences, you have the time to sit, and you are with your thoughts. You are the only person sitting with your thoughts, and you're actually experiencing life in real time, in the sense that you can choose to dispose or like park your emotions for a while, but also you can't do that for too long, because they are there and the silence is loud. So you have no choice but to like sit down with emotions and be like, okay, how do I feel about this? What do I do next? And okay, I'm sad now, so fuck it, I'm just gonna cry. And you can cry. You can cry. That's the best part. Because when you're at home and you don't necessarily, you can't just go to the room and start crying. I mean, you can, but I don't know what's in your home. But then you have this sort of freedom to reflect on your life. And I mean, you tend to spiral. I mean, I'm giving you the positives already, but you do have a lot of time and you do tend to spiral and you don't have anyone to lean on. So that can be a downside, especially initially when you start off on the solo living situation. Number two, you don't always have someone to speak to or to validate your experience. Especially as someone who has come as a student, the only other people that you can lean on are who have come in as a student, because they understand the experience. And especially if they are someone just like you, I feel like we all have something to fall back on, but you kind of want this for yourself, because at the end of the day, you do have this pressure where you don't want to disappoint your family and you don't want to disappoint yourself. And you and your family have spent so much and invested so much on you. So you don't want to be that sort of failure, even though your family can keep telling you, hey, this is not a failure. You're going to be fine. If anything, we'll sort something else out for you. You're going to be fine. But in the depths of your heart, you're just like, oh, you don't necessarily have people to share this experience, this situation with. They are friends of mine who have gone back to India and they probably would understand. But again, this is like a long distance friendship. You can leave them voice notes and you can call them, but there's no real time sort of validation or there's no real time sort of experience sharing. So you do tend to experience all of that by yourself. Those emotions you have to feel by yourself, and it can be very suffocating, especially for me personally. If I don't share like what's on my mind, I will go on a 7-day breakdown. And as much as I know that's like not the healthiest, I also don't necessarily always have someone to share it with. The one friend at that point who I could share it with was busy in her life, so you don't really want to put that sort of pressure on that person as well, because everyone has their own lives. So you need to be able to sort yourself out, and that's what I was trying to do. You have to learn to regulate your own emotions. I think sometimes this can edge to hyper independence and just being like, I also don't like being a burden on anyone emotionally or in any sort of way. So that's another reason that I don't discuss it. But again, I think more or less you also don't have that freedom to discuss these experiences, which leaves you to deal with it for the most part of it by yourself. Number 3, you end up doing a lot of things solo. When, let's say, if you're back home, if I was back in Kuwait and I was living by myself, let's say, I would still have the solo living experience, but on the times that you want to speak to someone or maybe have lunch or dinner with someone, I still had those options as well. I mean, of course, if you're an extroverted person and you're able to make these connections outside, which personally I find quite hard for myself, you have to do these things alone. Like, you generally have to pick yourself up and be like, yeah, I'm gonna dress up and go to this restaurant. And you have to dress up and be like, okay, I'm gonna go book these tickets and travel solo. I'm not big on traveling solo, by the way. I'm not someone who likes to go and meet other people and be like, oh, so what's your life like, and then never meeting the stranger again, right? I'm sure like there are better experiences than that, but I love traveling being a shared experience. I like, especially if it's someone that I can converse with. Oh my god, chef's kiss. Let's travel the world together. But having to pick yourself up and getting used to doing things, sitting alone in a restaurant, sitting alone in a theater, no one's looking, to be honest. You only realize that after a point of time. Or even like having to travel and see these new cities alone. It's not the easiest. It really is not the easiest. And um yeah, those are the downsides of living alone. Now, for the upsides of living alone, number one, you get a lot of time alone. This is the same thing as the downside. The thing about having a downside and an upside is, I think it's about how you see it. It's about how you see it. And when you're experiencing something new in life, I think it's very easy to spiral into the negatives. Maybe because it's like self-talk that you're used to, like expecting the worst, or you're used to not like having like a positive perspective. But when you are getting into a new experience, it's easy to let your more I don't want to say negative emotions, because I don't primarily think certain things are negative. I think when you speak about emotions being like, oh, I feel lost or I feel confused, like that's a state of mind, but these are not necessarily negative. They are challenging emotions, but I don't think they are negative. I think they are so important to feel these things or be in these situations, just so that you can come out the other side and be like, oh, that what an amazing transition. You got to see the rain before you see the rainbow, you know? It's the same 3 points. You get a lot of time alone. And the idea that, for me back in Kuwait, whenever I had a difficult thought, it was so easy for me to call my friends or sit down with my mom and, speak to her while cooking or whatever. And I didn't necessarily need to speak about things that were daunting me or were difficult for me. I could speak about anything else, right? Because in a way, I'm just distracting myself from what I was actually feeling or what my actual thoughts were. There was such easy distraction. I could just go out with my friends and I could just do anything at my convenience. But when you're living by yourself, you have to face those demons. You have to face those thoughts. You have to reflect on your life. You have to reflect on the person that you are. In fact, there are things that you have suppressed from maybe 10 years ago. And you have these experiences now, and all these triggers are coming up, and you're like, oh my God, why am I feeling these things? Oh, this is why, and that is why. So, all of these spirals that you're having, you spiral out of them as well. And then you get to know yourself a little more better. And you get to draw these boundaries, or you get to know what shaped you as a person and what's shaping you now. You get to know what works for you, what does not work for you, and you learn so much about yourself being alone. And you're able to know you as yourself as a person, because usually when you're constantly around people, I feel like you're playing this performative role, right? Because you can't just put your, I don't think we're in a society which allows you to be easily selfish without making selfish look like a bad thing, you know? And when you decide that, I don't think me thinking about myself and having these boundaries or standards is become selfish, but it's harder to do when you're around people who know you for so long that when you set a new boundary, that it might be a bit unacceptable. Because they're like, I'm sorry, we were able to talk to you like this before, and now you're just like, you can't talk to me like this. What? I was like, actually, you couldn't talk to me like this before also, just that I didn't have a spine. And now, I'm sorry, but I do. And I will not be tolerating this bullshit anymore. Thank you. Thank you so much for understanding. And if you don't, oh, that's too bad. So there's so much you learn about yourself. There's so much you stop tolerating because you have had all these epiphanies in life because of the time you spent alone. And I think it's amazing. I think you need to have you need to spiral out of your spiral, and you can only do that in a way alone. Of course, you need your friends and family to help you with that process, but when you're alone, you experience it very differently. And I think it's one of the most beautiful, best things to experience. Number two, you don't always have someone to speak to or validate your experience. I'm someone, unfortunately, I was someone, unfortunately, who used to always look for external validation. I, it was so sad, dude. I was just this person. All the things that I'm doing now, um, I would do this thing where I'd throw out the idea in front of a random friend. And if their approach was negative towards that idea, I would probably not take forward that idea. Let's say 5 years ago, if I had to go and tell a friend, oh my God, I want to start this podcast and I think it'll be so much fun if you do a podcast, she'd be like, oh my God, it's so difficult to do it. And how do you put yourself out there? Ew, like, you know. And if someone laughed at the idea, then I'd be like, yeah, like, you know, probably. I'm obviously getting over my head. And if it was a positive idea, I would get that validation and be like, oh my God, they actually think I can do it. And then I'd not do it at all because that validation was enough for me. Okay, so I was that sort of person. But after being on by myself, I have, it's not like immediately I moved here, lived solo, and I didn't need any validation in my life. That's not what I'm saying. It took a while to understand that this is something that I actively do and I need to stop. Like, I need to stop looking for people to say positive things about the things that I want to do. I need to be able to listen to the negative things and still be okay to move forward with the things that I want to do, regardless of something that's negative or that may not be something that I wanted to hear. You know, I need to stop seeking that validation. And I started doing things without discussing them with anyone anymore, because I knew that discussions that I used to try having was purely to get validation out of it. I needed to stop doing that, and by living alone, I had no choice. But again, I had that sort of space to validate myself and to validate my own experiences and say that they're valid, without having someone else to add to that sort of thought process. So right now, I'm not saying I'm not looking for sort of judgment or I'm not looking for feedback, and I don't need, sometimes it's nice to be a bit validated and, you know, people to be in agreement with the things that you're doing, or for people to sort of lift you up a bit higher. It feels nice, especially if it's someone who you care and whose opinion you care for, and they come and tell you something positive. Amazing, right? But I think for the person that I was, I think it's been a great shift for me to be able to do the things that I do now without seeking that sort of validation. So I think, yeah, that's my point number 2. And number 3 is doing things solo. As much as it has been a really, really, really daunting experience to do things solo, I mean, you know, the thing is, when you're doing grocery shopping, or just actually grocery shopping is the only thing that I can think of. When you're doing grocery shopping solo, it feels like a normal thing, but you're still doing it solo. You don't expect someone to come with you to go grocery shopping, you know, unless you're living together or whatever. So you're still doing it solo. But when you're doing things like eating out alone, or you're going to the movies alone, or you're going shop, I used to love going shopping alone, so I wouldn't say shopping, but these sort of things where you feel like you need to have company to experience these things, when you're doing them solo, you have to do them solo. It's really hard. But once you do it, it feels so liberating. I love, don't get me wrong, I would love to have someone to go out to a restaurant with and share food. I would love to go out sometimes shopping with people, with friends, to be like, hey, how does this look? Sometimes there's something really nice, or there's something really, like I said, liberating to be able to do these things by yourself. I think it's really grown my confidence a lot, that it doesn't feel weird. Like, my mom sometimes asks me saying, oh, you're going alone? And I'll be like, yeah. And the thing is, my mom also lives alone. So it's so nice to even hear her say, yeah, I went here alone and I did this and I went for a walk here. And there's this sort of feeling of comfort that you're going to be fine even if you do end up alone. You know, I mean, that's quite a stretch in life, but I think I've also come down to a fact where I'm like, hey, if I had to live this life alone, I think I'll be completely fine. It gives you this sort of confidence in yourself to be able to accomplish things without relying on someone else. It's an experience. Living alone, being by yourself for majority of your time is quite an up and down experience. Would I recommend it to someone? Absolutely. I definitely think everyone should do it. And there's a point where you'll be like, okay, I'm ready for a companion now, But till that point, I think you should live alone. I think there are certain perks of living with fam and stuff, and if you need to live off those perks, it makes sense. But if you have the privilege or the capacity or the support to live by yourself, I think everyone should definitely experience that. It is very dangerous grounds to walk on because there's always this question like, oh my god, if I had to live with someone now, that's going to be quite hard. Like, when you are so used to doing things your way, I don't know how much would I like it if someone else had to come into my life and be like, oh, but this is done this way and that is done that way. To be with someone who may be fixated on their way being the right way. So, I mean, to be fair, even I can be a bit stubborn like that. So I'm sure, like, I'm not a glass of whiskey, if that's your choice of drink. But yeah, I would 100% recommend it. So this is my podcast on solo living and everything that I think someone should the reason why I did do this podcast is because I'm trying to figure out the positives that came out of this experience. It's not like I need to figure it out. I know the positives that came out of this experience, but I wanted to sort of convey that on my podcast so that I remember and I don't forget the things that I've become because of the past 3 years that I've had. The privilege that I've had to live this life is so immense, and I'm so grateful. And yeah, there I got a little emotional. It is a brand new day, in fact. But yeah, this is the start of my series. It's not a series, guys. It's not a series. But this is me trying to bring new perspective into the experience that I've had and to make sure that I'm making the best of the next 6 months. You can never say how this, by the end of it, they'll be like, hey, you have an amazing CV. Thank you so much for sending it over. We want to sponsor you right away. And I'll be like, oh my God, yay, I get to stay in this country. But for right now, this is the situation. And I'm going to try my best and be grateful for whatever experience that I've had. Now, just to bring it back down, next 3 months, I will spiral again. Just, to make sure I have my quarterly spiral. Because this happened back in March, and I told you back then as well that I'm going to be spiraling after another 3 months. And here I am. It's been a little over 3 months. So by the end of the year, again, I'll be spiraling. But here we are, guys. Go live solo. Go stay away from your family. Go stay away from your friends. Live this new-founded life for yourself. Learn more about yourself. Understand what are your boundaries. Grow the courage to do things that you never thought you would do on your own accord. And yeah. It's going to be great. So thank you so much for watching and love you. Bye.